Hey everyone, welcome to another video. I'm finally back. I've been gone for maybe about a week. It's been my birthday this week, so I've been having a lot of time celebrating with family and with friends. So I've been out a lot, haven't been posting too much, so I've been a little bit inactive. But I'm going to tell you right now that this is going to make up for it. I have something pretty incredible. I have been working on this Notion template for a while. It's evolved quite a bit from when I first started trading, and I'm going to give it to you for free. So this video is going to talk about how to use it, and I'm going to show you some of the things so you can edit it and make it your own. You're probably not going to want a giant picture of my face on it, so maybe you're going to be able to add something yourself. Now, just so that you know, Notion is free. You can get the paid version. I don't even know what the paid version gets you, because honestly, I think you can use everything with the free version, and so I haven't had to upgrade. It hasn't asked me to, and I've had this for a couple months. I will say that the moment that I became a profitable trader was when I began learning to keep track of my trades. This was something that I had no idea existed back when I used to have my trades, probably like most of you guys, especially if you're starting out. It's just screenshots. Every single time that we take a good trade, we take a screenshot, put it in your favorite album, whatever, and that's kind of your way of showing off your cool trades. So that's kind of what I was doing for a couple months when I started tracking my trades, or maybe I guess the first year, right? And then after that, I started learning more about basically tracking your trades. I made my own version, and then I saw that the Phantom Group had a version, and they were giving theirs out for free, and I thought it was super cool. And you know what? It was good for what I needed it for at that time, but it really was missing the mark on a lot of things. And so it's great for trade tracking, but something that I've built here is basically, this is probably the first Notion template for Forex trading, designed to make you a better trader. And so the whole idea behind the system that I built here, is it basically will force you to think in a way of really making sure that you're taking valid trades. It's going to put it over and over in your head as you're recording trades, like, okay, were we trading pro trend? Were we trading counter trend? What's going to be your targeting? Like, what are you going to be focusing on? What's your entry? What things did you see? Now I'm going to show you a couple previews of what my old ones were. It's just going to take a minute or two, and then I'm going to show you how cool this one has become. So my first trading, this was my first trading thing that I basically built myself. I had a trading calendar, and I mean, is there stuff on here? I think there's supposed to be stuff on here. I mean, there we go. I have, like, for example, this is one that I was using back like November. I think I was using this one, and I think this was just the one that I used myself. These are live trades, all that I took during November, for example. Let me see. For example, if we pick this day, we got a couple nice trades here. And basically how it worked is I would say, okay, what did I trade? When did I trade it? Is it a swing or a sniper trade? All of these are sniper trades. I really didn't take like any like big swings. I did in a couple times, but most of them were intraday. And then the characteristics, I just had a massive list, right? And so it's obviously kind of confusing, not very organized. You can see my stop loss size, my risk to reward. For example, I took screenshots of different, let's say, entries. Let me see if I can get you an actual entry. Is that the right one? There's a couple of them there. Seconds time frame. I guess, I don't know. I have screenshots in here basically of those trades. And then, for example, let's pick a random one here. You can see if this is what one trade looked like. I had 3 trades, one here, one entry there, another entry here, secondary, third, hit target. This, I think, is Asian session, Euro, US dollar. Basically, this is what it, started at. These were all my actual live trades, and this is kind of how I started recording it. I think prior to even that one, I had a template system like this, which was really confusing, where I basically just tracked my trades like this. I would have like a screenshot, and I didn't really know what I was doing, right? So like I would have, this was the trade that I took, a 5 minute, that was at the entry time. This is what on the 1 minute the limit looked like, and then upon completion, this was like one of my first biggest trades that I had back last year. It was like a 48-hour trade, and it continued. Obviously, it hit down, and I got re-entry, it looks like. So that's kind of what it started. It evolved a lot more. Then basically what I did is I've built like different versions of this trade tracker that I have, and you can kind of see a couple trades in here. But now I've fully remodeled this, and I think that this is, I would say that it's finally ready to be used, and it's finally ready to be released. I'm going to show you how to edit it. I'm going to break it down. So let's get into this first. So first things first, you have your little banner photo. Easy to add, change that, change cover. Basically what I've done is I've added a few codes to this, and I'm going to show you how you can change these up basically through TradingView itself. So I just Google TradingView widgets, and if you go on here, you can basically find widgets to kind of customize them yourself for what you're looking for. So you might want to change some of these. I have like the ticker tape and a couple different ones. And here you can see it's a ticker tape. Basically has like the major currency pairs, the S&P, NASDAQ. It has Bitcoin, Ethereum, gold. Just a couple basic things. Just something that, when I'm trading, I want to make sure that I'm just aware of everything that's out there. The other thing that I think is pretty cool, I don't really use this too much, but I think it's pretty nice to have like a heat map of this. So the way that this works is it basically compares Forex pairs. So for example, like let's say GBP to USD. You can see that it's down a little bit, right? A little bit. You go to CHF USD, you can see that's a little bit down. You go to Euro USD, you can see it's a little bit down. And so you kind of see where the concentration is of what are stronger pairs and what's a little bit weaker for that day. This is updating every single second as the market is open, so it's constantly changing. You can see a little bit of movement. Then I also have this economic calendar. This one I think is really cool because the reality is we need to be aware of everything that's happening at the right times. And so you can actually modify this by changing with these settings. This is like only high importance, which is I think what I usually have it set at. So you can change it back and forth. You can see these are the things we can expect. This is for Japan. We have China, Germany, we have the UK. You can kind of change what countries. These are the ones that I have set. Realistically, I don't need to know what's happening in China or in Russia. I trade Euro, US dollar, so I really don't need a lot. So I can really, clean this up and keep it simple so that all I'm focusing on is the things that are relevant to what I'm actually trading. So let's get this back. There we go. And so you can kind of see what's going on. These update. I do prefer, honestly, Forex Factory because it's way easier. You can kind of see that there's just a handful of things to look at. But this one is honestly really good as well. It's constantly updating. So it's just something to be aware of. When I'm taking my trades right before the session starts, I'm just looking to see what's coming out within the next 3 hours or so because that's as long as I'll probably be on the screen. Then I have these clocks that basically to change them, I used an app called Indify. It's free. Here it is. You can just go to this link. You make a free account and you can basically add widgets. Mine are for the clocks. Now the cool thing about this is I believe I have this one set to local. So anywhere that you are, this will reflect to your current time. So if you're traveling a lot, which I haven't been doing a lot of lately, this will be able to update to wherever you are. Aside from that, we need to know London, we need to know New York, things like that. Now for me, the ones that are relevant, I have like more of like, London and Asian session. And so these will keep me, keep in mind for me what time it is where. So I know, who's coming who's coming online soon, where can I expect the volume to come in from. And then at the same time, we have the actual trade tracking system. So has this been used a lot? I finished building it just like a day or two ago. I've made a ton of modifications to it. I've had people ask me a couple times in the last week alone and several weeks prior to that about my Notion template. I have not been able to share it because I was still working on it. But I think it's finally ready to that point to where I can share it. And I think it's ready to be released. So let's get into it. So first things first, we're going to go over a couple trade examples. And then this week, I just started implementing it myself. So I already have 2 trades that I've taken to this week. And I'm going to add them in. You're going to see how they work and what the system's all about. So kind of like I said, this whole system is built around making you a better trader. The idea behind this is, and unfortunately, like, I don't know necessarily your strategy, and you might have a different strategy. If you watch my videos, you might already have an understanding of how I trade. This is kind of built more for that type of system. Let's get into an actual example here. So I have these, and then I'm going to show you I have the actual charts. So these are trade examples. Not that I've taken these exactly, because I haven't recorded my trades in the last couple weeks because I've been kind of trading. I've not been on the screen too much. So these are specifically examples to show you how to be setting this up. So the way that this works, and I've had some inspiration from other ones that I've seen, but nothing on here is like anything that I have seen prior. So I'm excited to share this. So first things first, when we're recording a trade, what's the asset that we're trading? You can add your own. So for example, if you trade GA, GBP AUD, and you just click add, and you'll now be able to select that. So you want to update this with your own pairs. These are kind of the things where I usually stick to. Obviously, 90% of the time I'm just doing Euro US dollar, but when it does change, these are the things I'm looking at. So the asset that I'm trading. Then what's going to be important is what is the market structure on the higher time frame down to my execution time frames. Usually because most people are not in true understanding of the trade that they took, why it didn't play out. And a lot of times we might not realize that if you're taking shorts, and it's okay to take counter trend trades, right? But if you're taking counter trend trades, you have to have realistic expectations. If you're taking pro trend trades, then you also have to have realistic expectations of that too. And so I think that's why it's pretty important. So for me, I look at the chart. This was for example number 1. So I'm looking at the daily chart. So daily chart, to me, I see it's bearish. We've had a bearish break of structure. So the daily is bearish. The 4-hour, you can see that has just recently become bullish. So technically what I'm expecting is if the pro trend is bearish, right, on the daily, the 4 hours is basically now counter to the daily, but is now bullish. What I'm expecting is this is probably going to create a corrective pullback before we have continuation. Likely that's the most probable scenario, right? So daily is bearish, the 4-hour is bullish. Now, I don't trade off of daily structure, so it's not going to be super important to me what's happening on the daily, but it is something that I'm keeping in mind, because if I want to be a better trader, I really need to understand what's happening and who's in control. Now, at the moment that this trade was occurring, let's say, for example, we're going to do the bar replay back just so that we don't have to be confused with all the new stuff. At this moment, you can see that the 15-minute was bearish, right? So right now, what I'm looking for is, okay, if the 4-hour is bullish, we've most recently had a pretty big swing on the 4-hour. Here you can see we broke structure to the upside. On the 4-hour, we pulled back and we created this really big swing. So all I'm looking for is price is probably going to come back to the extreme. In this case, as we had a very high momentum break of structure on the 4-hour, this was another 4-hour break. And so I'm probably expecting price to come back here, because this is where we have an imbalance to fill, and we have a lot of, let's say, liquidity resting orders that we might have to come back to mitigate. And so that's kind of what I'm looking for. So the 15 minutes bearish, and I'm looking to see the 15-minute realign with the 4-hour, as I think the 4-hour is going to go higher to mitigate a daily POI, right? Now, when did I take this trade? In this case, this trade was basically a, obviously this was an example, right? So this is, we're going to say, is basically an Asian session. Here you can see that these two little lines here represent London and New York, because this is kind of how I used to, basically when I'm done trading, I already obviously know the session that I'm trading, and so, I'm only there for 3 hours. But when I'm going back to do back testing, I want to see them like this, because if I have to look at the times down here, it's going to be a little confusing. So here I can kind of see what moves happened when. so where the POIs were established. So in this case, in the middle here would be during Asian session. So this would be like a Sunday market open, Asian session before, Monday, my time zone, obviously, right? So here we would just set a limit. We're going to say for this example. And now, what is the higher time frame POI? So the idea behind this is we really want to become better traders. We have to understand what valid POIs are and why we're picking them, right? So in this case, if I want to be a better trader, I really have to understand what's a POI that is valid for what I'm looking for. In this case, I can see that we have kind of we have this strong sell candle here, right? That pushes price lower back into the mitigation of this wick, right? Here you can see the price is kind of rolling around. We have a doji candle that is basically showing sell to buy price action. We could see this being used as inducement, liquidity, and so we're looking for this action here, which is basically this wick here that sweeps to the left and then changes bullish. This would be the extreme. And so to me, this is a 4-hour POI, this entire candle here, as you can see, as we marked it out. It's a 4-hour POI. And I tend to like to refine my 4-hour POIs to the 15-minute because we can get a much cleaner trade off of a 15-minute POI, because this, how large is this section, right? I mean, this would be a 20, 30, that's almost like 30 pips. That's pretty large. And so, in the 15-minute, I can kind of narrow it down. I have a couple zones that I could focus more on. I see here that we have some inducement. Neither of these areas tapped this POI here. In fact, I have two 15-minute POIs that I would see as valid. We have, after this happens, we pulled back. We did not mitigate this area, but it's unlikely that we are going to take out this, as this is the low that makes the new 4-hour high. So there's no reason to take this level out. If anything, we could tap this, but we would respect it. And so I'm looking for reactions off of these two areas. This one has inducement, right? It's an inside bar that has basically it has a reaction to a supply, right? Creates a lower time frame range. And then this one is the one where we had an explosion of orders to the upside, left behind imbalance. This basically met and tapped most of the imbalance, but we still have the inside bar that has yet to be mitigated. And so I can see a lot of liquidity here is basically telling me that this would be the cleaner POI. So this trade makes sense to me. I would set a 15-minute limit, 5 pip stop loss, right? So this is what type of POI? It's a demand. It's a 4-hour refined 15-minute. If I refine that down to the 5-minute, which I did not in this case, then I would then mark it as a 15-minute refined 5-minute, right? This is really going to help you step your game up, I'm telling you. So now I'm going to go to the next part. So hold on, is this getting frozen here? This froze a little bit. All right, no problem. I have the app, which never gives me problems. Sometimes the web application version is a little bit funky, but this one usually is flawless. So we're just going to go back to this one. So we have this. I don't need this 15-minute refined. It's just 4-hour refined to the 15-minute. Then I need to know, well, what is the entry type? Why did I pick this POI specifically as my entry zone? Well, if I look at it, there's certain things that I'm looking for specifically. If you saw my entries, my everything about entries video, you'd have some understanding about what I look for. In this case, I see that I have the extreme and I have the decisional. The POI that I decided to set a limit on in this example, that's a trade example, this is not me live trading it, right? It would be this one. And so this one is a decisional. It's a flip. See, here we have supply that made new lows. We have a reaction that took some liquidity from here, from the first reaction, created an inside bar, and then exploded and took out that supply. So we see that it's a flip. It's a sell to buy engulfing, right? It's an inside bar and it's a doji candle. It's, not like a super clean doji candle, but, same principle behind there. It's the open and close is relatively in the center of that candle. And so those are things that are very important, because as I build these rules here, I'm really going to start understanding why I'm taking certain trades and what I need to see to be able to take these trades. Now, on top of that, I need to refine this POI. So this is a 4-hour refined 15-minute. It made sense because it's a decisional, it's a flip, sell to buy engulfing, inside bar, and a doji candle. But now these are the specific characteristics that I need to see for this. For example, price you can see was bearish at this point, and at this moment, this was the area that basically gave us a change of character to the upside. Prior to that, we just had a wick through, right? Which, is valid here technically, but this is where we got confirmation. So here we basically gave what? Change of character and a break of structure. So here we changed character inside the higher time frame POI. So in this 4-hour, specifically, the 15-minute, this POI resulted in change of character, break of structure, right? And break of supply because it gave a reaction to supply and then it basically invalidated it. POI has inducement, right? You can see here that we have inducement. So this is just further giving me confidence. POI has inducement, equal highs or lows or trend line or structural, right? That's important. And then has a POI left behind imbalance. Yes, it left behind imbalance and it's still unmitigated, right? And so these are the things that I'm looking for. You can add more to it, but realistically, the more you have of these, the higher quality POI you are going to have. It's pretty incredible. Now, what's my execution time frame? In this case, this was a 15-minute execution time frame. And what type of trade was it? Well, it was a buy limit. This is important because realistically, when you're trading, a lot of times, especially if you're taking a lot of trades, you might not always remember what your execution was on those trades. It'll be really cool to be able to backtest this and see later where do you have your best performing trades. Are they typically market executions? Usually when I do a market execution, it's always on the seconds time frame because that you really can't set limits on seconds time frame because MT4 and MT5 do not go down to the seconds as far as I know how to do it. I cannot see the seconds. I can only go to the minute. So when I'm trading seconds, I have to use market order if I'm going to do it properly, right? Also accounting for spread. At the same time, usually I'll set limits more on like 15-minute POIs and below. If I'm also on the 1-minute time frame or on the seconds, I'll use buy stops or sell stops. And so this is just going to help you up your game because you're really going to be collecting a lot of data on what type of trades you're taking, right? On top of that, what's incredibly important is to understand how you should be targeting. Most people will take a trade like this on the 15-minute time frame, and they might be happy to take this simply up to here. And they'll say, okay, well, this is the 15-minute supply that pushed price into this demand. I'll take that trade. Now the 15-minute is bullish here. We're getting confirmation. I'm excited about this trade. Price gets up to here, and they're like, okay, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just going to close this trade a day later. I think the problem with many traders, and I've been I've done this before in the past too, is that we don't hold our trades all the way through. Now you might have your own trading system, your own trading plan where you're like, okay, I don't care. I'm only going to take profits at 5 to 10R. You might have a system where you're like, I won't hold a trade if I'm away from the computer, whatever it is that your system is. But at the minimum, you should have an understanding of what the expectation should be. Considering that this is a 4-hour POI, right? The daily is bearish, right? But the 4-hour has just changed character bullish. We've created a massive swing to the upside, and we've taken a buy at the extreme 4-hour POI, refined it down to a decisional 15-minute. The 15-minute changed character, and what does that tell us? At the very minimum, the expectation for this trade should be a break of the 4-hour high, break and closure, because we've just created 1, 2, 3 4-hour bullish structures. If we are continuing, we should do so until at minimum, until we get to premium pricing on the daily, which would be like probably above in these areas here, right? And so this is something that I think is incredibly important to start tracking. In this case, and this is going to help you because I have it set in here. So, let's say, for example, what are we trading? Well, we're trading, this is a pro trend trade. As you can see, we're pro trend on the 4 hour because I'm not using the daily structure as my trend. I'm just using it as giving me an overall idea of where price can be, but I use the 4 hour and the 15 minute, right? So in this case, I'm trading a strong 4 hour POI. So what should I be targeting? Weak 4 hour structure. Now, for example, if I was taking a, let's say, pro trend, let's see, if I was taking a pro trend strong 15-minute POI, right? Let's say I did not get in at the 4 hour refined to the 15-minute. Well, if I did not get in at the 4 hour refined to the 15-minute, and let's say I got in like here or here, realistically, price could come back to these POIs below. You know, we are not getting in at a reversal point. So likely you could be swept, even if you took this trade here, you know, let's say upon a pullback, you got in here and you're like, wow, this is doing great. And price pulls back before it taps into any supply anyway. And it just sweeps you out, you know, and you could have had this trade. So in this case, if you would have taken a trade here, that is not a 4 hour refined 15-minute, it's just a 15-minute standalone, that would tell you what? If it's a pro trend strong 15-minute POI, target weak 15-minute structure. You know, if you got in here, right, you should, or where would you get in? Let's say you got in here, your target would be this high. If you got in here, your target would be this weak POI, right? And so this is going to really help you step up the game when it comes to that. In this case, pro trend strong 4 hour POI, targeting weak 4 hour structure. And that's how you would get a trade like this. We have a buy limit. Our stop loss was 5 pips. Let's say, for example, you know, in this case, the trade ran once it hits your TP about 43.18 R. So let's just say 43 R. And this is a cool thing. You know, some people, I mean, a lot of people don't like to focus on the numbers, but this is good for you. So, you know, if you want to keep track of what your gains should look like, or you know you want to keep track of what your gains could be looking like if you had a larger account or whatever, you know, add your account size. Let's say you're trading with like $1,000. Let's say you trade 2% risk. You can change this. Now, I change my risk often, as you see that I have dynamic risk management strategies. Usually I stick to 2%, but let's say you change it often. This is going to be so much easier for you to edit because the system is going to automatically correct for that. Let's just say you upped your account. You're at $5,000 now and you're trading 1% risk. At a 43% R, this is what your gains would be. Now let's just say if now you're doing 1.5%. Whoops, that was the risk, right? 1.5% risk, and this is your automatic. This will show you what your net profit is. Your account is now at, let's say, $2,500, whatever. You're a little bit lower than that. This 4-hour trade, results in a 64% gain, right? So you can play around with these numbers, do it as you want, right? I've added a couple things to these. I think these are helpful. I've gotten some inspiration from the last one that I had that I saw from Phantom. But I've changed most things on here because I obviously did not really like some of the things that they were putting on there. It didn't make sense to me. So I think these might be more helpful. Feel free to change them yourself. Everyone's different. A couple of things that I say, never forget. Well, everything has already been done once. You can do it too, right? So don't be intimidated by what you're trying to achieve, your goals. At the end of the day, almost everything's already been done. And so why wouldn't you be able to also do the same, if not better, right? Now, along with that, it's important to believe in yourself. I don't know what your environment is or what the people around you are like. I know some people could be negative and, talk down on what you're trying to achieve. You need to remember that at the end of the day, it does not matter what anybody else thinks. Nobody understands exactly what you're doing like you do. And so you need to believe in yourself. And you'll notice that as you show more confidence and belief in yourself, others will too. Something that I think is also important to keep in mind is trading is mechanical, not emotional. There is no room for hesitation. So when it comes down to it, trading is, very algorithmic in a way. Trading is very like if this then that, and you got to be quick. You might be trading seconds time frame, minute time frame, whatever it is that you're doing. You can't really think twice. And that's why it's important to have a strong system that trains you like this, that constantly corrects you and reminds you what you should be looking for. So you stop changing the things you're constantly changing, like, taking profit before you're supposed to take profit, or for example, like, forgetting the rules you're looking for. Like, why would I take a trade if, everything is counter to what I'm looking for, or for example, if this isn't a 15-minute refined POI, then it's realistically not going to be something that can likely hold, and, if I'm looking specifically for characteristics on why this POI should work, before you take your trade, open up your trade recording system here and look at this and think, okay, well, does this meet these rules? Because if I was going to record this trade, it needs to have these things. The most important ones I've darkened a little bit, which I think is having inducement is pretty important, and that it breaks structure or supply and demand. Everything else is like very important and, also adds to it, but I think these two are probably some of the more important ones. Couple that people don't really talk about is, developing supply or demand chains. Some of my best trades and scale-ins were from those type of systems or those type of setups. So I recommend doing those too. You have to be more mechanical about trading, not so emotional. Trading is about probabilities. Execute on anything 51% probable. This quote I did borrow. Then detach from the outcome, accept the risk, smile and enjoy the process. That one too, I like that one. Keep it simple, trust yourself at the end of the day. A couple tips for risk management and your mindset is, do not fall in love with your trade ideas. The market does what it wants when it wants. That it speaks for itself. The reality is, you might love what your setups look like and what your bias is, but at the end of the day, you have to be more adaptive to what the markets are doing, because you simply will be waiting sometimes for something that never comes, right? Better to split your risk between two probable entries than to miss the winner. Sometimes I notice a lot of people are like, I have two potential entries, but I'm not sure which one to set up on. So they're like, okay, I'll set it on the decisional, and they get liquidated, and they're like, I didn't want to put it on the extreme because I'd take another loss. And I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't make sense. I mean, if they were both valid, then why wouldn't you just, split your risk at least, right? And then it's almost like, okay, well, if the decisional plays out, great, you still made money. If the extreme plays out, then the half risk that you lost on the decisional was minimal, and the extreme ends up running and doing pretty well and making you everything back, right? So I think that's a pretty cool little tip. Your risk per trade should be low enough that losses draw no emotion. It's incredibly important that you are not decentivized from taking trades, because you're risking too much. If you're risking too much and you're no longer taking valid trades because you're scared of taking trades, you're doing it wrong. Dynamic risk management, if you've watched my video on that, are we being corrective or preventative? This is something that I think is pretty important to implement. Watch that video if you haven't. Success requires considerable discipline and adaptability. Your risk management rules: be aware of high impact news events. You can see that here up at the top, right, as I showed you earlier. Protection of entries. This could be something that you begin to implement. Set break even or cover the entry after a break of structure on execution time frame. Maximum of 3 full risk losses per day. I do agree by that one specifically. This is one that I very much follow. If I have 3 losses at 2%, I will half my risk, which is a corrective dynamic risk management strategy that I have. And stop trading if I violate my trading plan. If I'm starting to get reckless, I will no longer be taking trades. Cool thing is you will add screenshots. So every time you have a trade and you want to take a screenshot of it, basically what you'll do here is, let's go to the actual chart here. And so for example, what you'll do here is you'll go save chart image. And then what you'll do is when you go back to the software here, you're just going to click, choose an image, and then you'll be able to pick it from here, and it'll just paste on there. And so anytime that you want to look at your setups, you'll be able to do that. For me, these are the type of time frames that I think are pretty relevant, and that's the ones that I use. You can kind of see them, for good measure. It's good to study and check back on these because you won't have your setups, and so this will be pretty helpful. Now, let's give into another example. So this was a 4-hour trade. Now let's look at a 15-minute trade. So this one would be, where is my system here? Moving that back. Perfect. All right, so next trade is this 15-minute one. Okay, so let's get into what we saw here. So this was a Euro US dollar trade. 4-hour was still bullish, as you saw, right? We're on our way to making a new 4-hour leg, right? Here we can see that we actually just broke 4-hour supply, right? So here we just swept above it. And the expectation is we can continue higher because we're expecting this target to be a 4-hour break of structure, right? So we're expecting a 4-hour break. Now, I'm getting in at a 15-minute, likely to be conservative. This would be a proper target. At the same time, price could have just swept this. We could have swept again and then just flipped back down. As you see, we have a lot of liquidity here that we could come back to taking, and a POI that could come back to be mitigated. And so, it's better to take a good profit rather than to sit out of a trade or see, 18R, go into a trade and then lose it all. So this would be a pretty conservative way to take it. This trade specifically, the 4-hour was bullish, the 15-minute was bullish. So this is a pro trend trade. Everything's in alignment. The session of this entry was during London. This was during London. So these are the 3 hours I typically trade during London. This is an example, obviously. So this one's just in between London and New York session. So this is kind of like right an hour before New York opens and still during London. So this entry was, why did we take this trade? Well, it's a 15-minute refined 5-minute demand. So this was the 15-minute. Let's go down to the 5-minute. And we're also gonna, let's show you what exactly it looks like, right? So the 15-minute chart looks like this. This was the POI. It's looks almost like a doji candle. It's not truly, but similar, right? It's a sell to buy that got engulfed, right? And you see a little bit of imbalance imbalance in between both of those wicks. That's the 15-minute. And I like to refine my 15-minute POIs to the 5-minute. Oftentimes, it does help. So I was able to cut a trade that would have had a stop loss of 4 pips to just about 2.5 pips, right? So this would have been the trade. That's the 5-minute POI. And so here, this is what I saw. So 15-minute refined 5-minute, so it fits my rules. It's not outside of that. If it was just a random 5-minute POI, I likely would not have really focused on it because it was not visible on the 15-minute, wasn't really valid, right? In this case, it was 15-minute refined 5-minute. What did I see about this trade? Well, it looks like a doji candle. It's an inside bar. It's a sell to buy engulfing, right? Doji inside bar, sell to buy engulfing, and it's an extreme. It's the extreme of this 15-minute swing. You see here that we had what looks like maybe a decisional. This is where we decided to go higher, but price came back to mitigate somewhat this POI. It wasn't very clean. Here we have an actual change of character as a result of this. And this is where price really turned around. So I could see this being used as inducement. So now we look for, okay, we know what the entry type was. Now let's look at the POI. Well, the POI changed character inside the higher time frame, right? That's one. POI has inducement. This is the inducement that we see. Structural inducement, right? We also see that it has left behind imbalance. There is imbalance in between here, and there's also imbalance in between here, between these two. And so likely we could come down to fill the imbalance of those, right? What else do we have? Did it sweep liquidity? It did not really sweep liquidity. It tapped something to the left. But that's basically what I have marked out. So these are the things that I saw, that I noticed. What's my execution time frame? This is on the 5-minute execution time frame. In this case, we set a limit, right? So this would be a buy limit. And what would I be targeting? In this case, The 4-hour is bullish. The 15-minute is bullish. It's a 15-minute POI refined to the 5-minute, right? This 5-minute, basically what am I looking for? It's a strong pro trend 15-minute POI. So I would like to target weak 15-minute structure. So based on those rules, this would be my POI, or my target, sorry. This is my POI, and this is the target that I'm expecting to be weak, because if this extreme failed to break this extreme, then this one should go. And now obviously you can see if I had the POI, let's say if this was at the full 4 pip stop, it would be about 8.8R, which is not bad, but we're able to get a cool 18.61R off of this trade, targeting 15-minute structure. Perfect. Stop loss 2.3, 18R. Once again, let's just say in this case you did well. Your account, let's just say you've been growing your account. You're at $10,000. You're risking 1% per trade, or let's say you're like me. This is a 15-minute POI, so you feel comfortable risking 2% on this trade, and it's a pretty conservative take profit. 30%, 37% gain. Here's your net profit. You can play with those. I just leave mine blank, but you can play with those if you like them. Just keeping track of all the things that I'm aware of. I made sure that I paid attention to these things. And what are my POIs? What did they look for? Well, I added the screenshots, of course, because I want to be able to look back at these trades later. Here's my 15-minute, that's relevant, and the 5-minute. Do I need the 4-hour? The 4-hour is not really necessary. I know that it's pro trend. You can kind of see here in this trade, but for the sake of the examples, I don't always fill them unless it's necessary, right? That's 2 examples. Here's another one that we're going to show you. This was a London trade. This one was a lower time frame, liquidity POI. So let's go to another one. Let's go get rid of this bar replay and go to the next nearest point. This was it, is what it looks like. Okay, perfect. Alright, so here at this point, here you can see we broke structure on the 4-hour, so this is a new 4-hour leg. So now what are we expecting? We're expecting some sort of pullback, right? Now that we broke structure and we saw a change of character to the downside, we can expect a pullback to resting liquidity. We have POIs that we could be targeting all along here. But these were some of the areas where we saw a reaction come to. So we saw that this supply pushed price down into this demand. We tapped, had a very strong impulse to the upside, pushed up, and we respected this 15-minute supply. Price gave us a change of character, bearish here, and you can see that we're forming what looks like a supply chain. Change of character again. We're respecting the supply, and this is where we get our entry during London. So here you see we have supply 1, breaks to the downside, break of structure, taps demand. The demand is not strong enough to take out the supply. Supply respected, change of character, 15-minute supply, 15-minute supply, right? And so what are we going to take our entry off of? This is a sponsored candle, and this is a change of character here that we saw in respect of the previous supply. So let's look at this setup. So on the 15-minute, and what we're going to do is we'll put the bar replay so that, when we drop time frames, it's not going to be a mess. Okay, perfect. So this is Euro US dollar, right? The 4-hour and the 4-hour is bullish. The 15-minute is currently bearish. So what does this tell us? If the expectation on the 4-hour is pro trend is bullish, right? What we're currently doing after we just broke structure on the 4-hour is we're having a pullback. So we're currently in the pullback phase before we continue bullish. And so what does this tell us? The 15-minute is counter to the 4-hour, so we have to be aware of that. What we're likely looking for is to build up liquidity or tap a group of resting orders or resting liquidity, right? So that's important. Trade during London. What was our POI? Well, we have several POIs that were traded reactions off of, but the one we took our entry from was a what? A 15-minute POI, and it looks like we could refine it. Let's see if we can, right? Here we refined a 15-minute POI to the 5-minute. Now, this is how large the 15-minute POI was. About 9 pips. Not super big, but it's pretty big. The 5-minute is just under 6 pips, which is fine. Maybe I would have set a limit on that. totally would have been perfect to take a limit on that, would have been valid, and would easily go into the trading system. Now, sometimes we're looking for confirmation because, we're still waiting, right? So how are we going to enter these type of trades? Same thing, right? Which is our actual POI? Well, 15-minute refined to the 5-minute supply. That's our POI, right? Now, what type of POI is this one specifically? Well, this is a liquidity POI. It's a sponsored candle. Takes liquidity and breaks to the downside. Now, obviously, we have a wick here that also takes liquidity to the left. This one mitigated that, but also has all of this unmitigated. So both of these together go hand in hand. That's kind of the trade we're looking for. Now, what else? Is this an extreme, a decisional? Well, considering that, we're building liquidity here, and basically what we're doing is all of this is manufactured liquidity that we're building. And so this is a swing that gives a change of character. At this pullback, we could technically say that this is the extreme of this swing to the downside. And we do have 5-minute change of character, 5-minute break of structure. We don't have, let's see, do we have 15-minute? We don't have a 15-minute break of structure here yet, so we can't say that. But what do we see? So liquidity POI, is it a buy to sell engulfing? The 5-minute is, the 15-minute is not buy to sell engulfing. In this case, we refined our POI. The POI is the 5-minute. So in this case, we're going to say it's a buy to sell engulfing. So liquidity POI. Is it a flip? No. Sponsored candles. We're going to say it's sponsored candles. That's important. Okay. So now we have some things that we've added here. Now, when we refine this POI, what makes this a good POI? We don't necessarily need to mark all of them, but it's helpful to because it'll make you a better trader. For one thing, here we broke structure to the downside. We respected supply. We broke the demand. We gave a change of character. So change of character inside the higher time frame POI. We broke structure, right, and supplier demand. That's part of the what do you call it? Here on the 5-minute. Here we do have break of structure to the downside on the 5-minute. Let's see, what else? Where was I at? Did we leave an imbalance? Not necessarily an imbalance, but the POI itself was not mitigated until this moment, right? So no left imbalance. Do we have inducement? We have tons of inducement for lower pricing. This POI in particular does have inducement. We do have this wick here, and we do have these POIs here. So these could serve as inducement, right? Liquidity for the taking. Did it sweep liquidity in itself? It did sweep some liquidity to the left. And then is it part of a developing demand or supply chain? In this case, it is. It's part of a developing supply chain. So we're building orders to go short. Did we have an aggressive reaction or V-shaped recovery? Absolutely. V-shaped recovery. We did have an aggressive reaction to the top of the POI to the left. So we have tons of reasons why this is a good POI. This is going to further get you into the idea of spotting these specific characteristics. Now my execution time frame, 1 minute to 3 minute. So let's look at it on the 1 minute and 3 minute. So the 3 minute looks clean. Now what do I see? I see that we have this POI here that also we could have been refining to, but it would have been missed. That would have been considered an over refinement, right? So let's say you set your entry at the 50% because this is a liquidity POI. If you set your entry at the 50% of this 5 minute, you would have missed it, right? And so if you would have set it at open, would have been great, or 25% would have been great. In this case, I would have set it at the 50% and I would have missed. And that's how I can justify the entry that I got here, because I would not have caught this one with the entry rules that I would have set. So now we go back to the 1 minute on the actual trade that I took, right? This was the POI that we were trading away from, right? But what do we also have here? Well, here we have, we push price higher, we tap into the 5 minute refine, we push lower. Here, could we consider this a change of character? We could in some sense, but realistically, this would be the area that I'd like to see go. Price then pushes up, makes another attempt. We fail to breach the high. And so what do we have? We could be creating inducement to come up higher to tap the 1 minute refined POI, which you see here. That's the 1 minute refinement. So I could potentially think that, well, maybe this is what's going to happen. We sweep and then we continue, bearish. Did not happen. So what does happen? Well, price after here pushes to the downside. Here we have a liquidity POI. We can see this one. Doesn't on the 1 minute, you don't really see it sweep anything. On the seconds, I'm sure it does. But this is what a shooting star to the downside. Looks like it would sweep liquidity on the seconds time frame and then give us a change of character. So now we have this swing to the downside. This is one swing. Price comes back up, taps this supply, respects it, gives another change of character, a break of structure as confirmation. Candle body closed below the wick. Perfect. This would be our new entry. So we would enter at the 50%. This would be a 1.5 pip stop loss. We'd cover the high just enough because this would be about 1.5 or 1.1. So we're going to cover this high too in case price comes up to sweep this one too. And this entry would be, what would it be? It's a 1 minute entry, or even on the seconds entry, execution time frame, 1 minute was perfect for the 50%. Now, what kind of trade is this? Well, the POI on this is we're trading from the 15 minute, not a 4 hour, a 15 minute. So if we go back to the 15 minute POI, or the 15 minute time frame, sorry, what do we see? Well, we see we had a massive imbalance here. Price came down to fill it. We tapped into this POI, pushed back into the supply. We see a supply chain forming. Technically, the 15 minute is bearish and the 4 hour is bullish. So technically what I can expect is, well, maybe we're going to form a demand chain. We have a supply chain building liquidity that we can sweep, on the return. Maybe what's happening is price is going to tap. We see a tap and then price will come back, tap here and then reverse, right? So because this is counter trend, I'm going to target this imbalance, the imbalance left behind in here from this 15-minute sell to buy engulfing. That gives a strong change of character. This was the sell candle before this push to the upside. You see we have some inducement here, but we don't really have too much below here on the 15-minute time frame. So counter trend, I'm targeting with a 1.5 pip stop loss, a mitigation, right? So this is counter trend. We are targeting basically a mitigation of a 15-minute POI. If we were trading from a counter trend 4 hour, that'd be a different story. But because it's basically we're targeting a 15-minute POI that's counter trend. It's not inside of the 4 hour. So it stands alone. And so that's how we would take that trade. We take screenshots, we add them in, 1.5 pip stop, 43R 43R gains, right? Account size, what's your account size? Whatever it is that you want to do. You're trading 2% risk, for example, whatever. Just emphasizing that you can modify all these things. That's a pretty crazy gain, obviously, right? And this gives you a whole idea of like, you really need to focus on what you're targeting instead of, just targeting a sweep of these lows. I mean, realistically, where is price going to come down to? If this demand failed to break this supply, likely this will go. It doesn't have to, but it likely can go because this is technically weak. So if it's weak, right, at the very minimum, what we could expect is a mitigation of this POI if we're just building liquidity like we're seeing, right? This could be a demand chain. So this take profit would be perfect and would secure you your profit if it reverses, right? Because we're counter trend. So we're trying to be smart about it. Here we have our screenshots. You can see the time frames, our execution. You can see why we took the trade. Very clear, makes sense, everything. That's the example. So that's like the last example that I pretty much had. I do have my live trades that I've taken for this week. This is kind of what they look like. This was a seconds trade on, let's see, this was a counter trend. I personally do a lot of counter trend trading. So this was a 15-minute POI. I saw that we were basically forming a supply chain up here on the lower time frame. We're building up all this liquidity basically to take this. So I expected price to likely come down to the refined levels here. But my very conservative take profit would be what? This is a counter trend, 15 minute, right? So I'm going to target what? Week 15-minute structure. The POI down here didn't have to be tapped. Now it did get tapped, but this would have been the safest place to take my trade from. So I was playing it safe, very conservative with my entry and my exit. And you can see what I was looking for. Basically, this is what was happening. Here we had a sweep. Now I did take an entry off of one of these other levels here, and then I stopped at break even. I think this stopped me at break even when I saw this mitigation, and I saw what price was creating a V-shaped recovery. I hit market execution just before that happened, and you can see price just dropped. It just died, right? And you can see what the trade looked like. That was like 8R or 10R, something like that. Here you can kind of see what I took it as. It was a 15-second execution. These were the things that I saw. Change the character inside POI. This was a 15-minute refined 1 minute, right? That was clean. This was my trades today, actually. So the markups to that were actually on my Discord group too. So if you're in my Discord, it's free forever. Just letting you know. I did market and explain the trades that I took today. That was my trade. It was perfect. I had 2 pending orders. My refined buy did not get triggered. My sell trade did get hit, and I hit the TP perfect before news came out. This is actually the setup. You can see it here in itself. This was the same trade. I just finished recording it. And what can you see? You can see that, for example, this was my 4-hour pre-London markups that I submitted in the group. You can see my 4-hour structure. I give those pretty much every day. You can see my 15-minute markups, right? This was after, so this was today after my session ended. Here's what the 5-minute looked like. So this was a 5-minute supply that I took. Now, normally I will not take a trade if it's not a 15-minute refined to the if it's not a 15-minute refined to the 5-minute. You could argue that this is the buy to sell price action that got engulfed in itself. The 5-minute was just so clean, it made sense to me. The supply was still in control. Had this demand been tapped, I would have no longer been looking for a short, but because supply was in control, we had enough inducement. This looked like a pretty clean trade. I did have a pro trend long from here, but it did not get triggered. As you can see, barely tapped, barely took me, hit my TP. And you can kind of see all of the time frames for this trade, what it looks like. So that's the whole idea behind it. I really hope that you enjoy this system. It's going to be linked in the description, right? Oh, sorry, the other thing is I forgot. So I have this system here. So this is an addition to basically this. So you have the whole economic calendar, heat map. You have the trade tracking system that I've built here. That every time you're going to record a trade, how do you record a trade? You hit new. You go here to trade live, right? And then you're going to just remember this is a trade live, right? And then that's what you're going to do. The day is already marked out if you select it on the day. So for example, if you're adding a trade for tomorrow, let's say, add an item, you hit trade live. You're now going to go ahead and enter all of the things that you're looking for, all of the things that you saw, and you can have it there. Now, something that I think is super cool about this is you can change what you're seeing about your trades. So for example, if you want to, let's see, it would be right here in the settings, properties shown. So let's just say, for example, for you more important is what are you trading, right? Because let's say you're trading a bunch of different things. Well, I want to pay attention to what's the asset that I traded. So I can show that. So you can see all mine are Euro US dollar. Now, when did I trade, right? Maybe for you, either you stick to one session or you have multiple sessions. In my case, lately I've been having multiple sessions. So I can see that. So I can see that this was a Euro US dollar London, Euro US dollar New York, Euro US dollar Asian session. Let's just say I want to show my, what are the things that I looked for, right? So my refinements, I can show all of those. My entry type. Well, let's say, for example, I don't want to show my refinements or my order type would be entry type. So now I can see, for example, all right, I saw that I hit 10R euro. I saw an extreme liquidity POI, a liquidity POI, liquidity POI, a flip, an inside bar. And so you can really, modify this to show exactly what you want, just so that you can, see your trades more. If you want to show your R, you can. If you don't want to show it, you don't have to. You can just focus on the stuff you want to see. Your net profit, if the money part's like, what you're focusing on, what you're motivated by, then you want to show how much you've made for every trade. It'll keep you in track with what you're doing, right? You might be having multiple accounts, and maybe on some accounts, on a funded account you traded, and on another one you didn't. You can modify your account size on every single trade for that reason, because most people have multiple accounts, right? On top of that, what happens when the month is over, right? When you go to the next month, those are still from March. So let's say you go to like the next month. Well, everything's clean. You can't see your past month's trade. So how cool is it that if you have a system that also helps you build your goals? Now, this part is what took me a while. So you think that there's 4 weeks in a month. Well, I really thought that. I don't know how I got messed up, but realistically, there isn't just 4 weeks in a month. Sometimes you have 31 days, 30 days, whatever. So some weeks will have 5 weeks. For example, in March, we have 5 Tuesdays. So that messed me up, because I usually focus on what's my return for Monday through Friday or Sunday through Friday, right? But that doesn't really work. So this is based off of numbers. And so this has every single month. So let's just say, for example, let's say the first week of March. What are your goals? Everyone has different goals. For me, if I hit 50R at the end of the week, I'm done for the week, and that's it. That's usually my goal. I try to get about 20R per session. Lately, it's not been that way. I've probably gone about 10R per session, and that's fine. So every time, it's important to keep milestones. So for the week, already myself, I hit 5R. So far, I've had 18R. So in this case, for this week, I'm going to hit that 10R. I already hit that milestone. 20R is coming up, but I have not hit that yet. So, I can kind of see here for all the previous weeks. Now, I just implemented it this week, obviously, so I don't have all my data from previous. But here you'll be able to see, like, okay, in this month I hit, or this week, I hit a total of about 40R. I hit my goal, right? Maybe you're a really good trader and you hit 100R a week. I don't know. You modify these. You can change them. The cool thing about this is that we have this thing that I built into it. So let's just say your total R for the week is, let's just say, 20, right? And then what days did you trade? I think this is so important, because at the end of the day, like, I only trade 2 to 3 days a week. I don't trade every single day. And so I haven't hit my goal, so I'm still going to be trading this week. But let's say if I wasn't trading more this week, 28 to 20, 28 and 30. So this is on the last 2 days or so. So here I've already, in the last 28 to 30, this would be covering 29 to 31. So in this case, I would only track these next couple days before the session ends. So for example, here I've hit 8.65. I have not hit 10R yet. But in this case, I'm going to say, like, okay, let's just say we hit 8. What days did I trade? Well, I traded Wednesday, right? And then what assets did I trade? Let's just say I traded Euro and, US 30. And then let's just say for the previous week, let's say we're going to use this one as an example. I hit, let's say on this one, 20R, or that one says 40. So we're playing around with this. This is just as an example. The idea behind this is, let's say you hit all 50 here, right? And we traded only Euro, US dollar, days traded, Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, right? Maybe we even hit Bitcoin. Let's say we hit Bitcoin on Saturday, right? So we're going to add Bitcoin. So now this system is so cool, because you can look back here on every single week of the year. All you have to do is you scroll, and you can kind of see what you did in what month. Here you can have it even display the R if you want. All you have to do is add that as a little property. So we go to properties here, and let's say we want to also show the R. Here's the total R. And so when you see that, it's going to add it in. And so now, for example, here, this one I didn't actually set the number, so let's just say this one was 55. Now you can go ahead and see for March. Okay, week 1 I hit, let's say, 20 total R. It says down here I hit my goal, whatever. Week 2 I traded Sunday and Tuesday only. I hit 40 R, traded Euro, US dollar, and US 30. So I know the days that I traded. Then, the next week, let's say I was on vacation, whatever. The next week after that, I hit 55 R. I hit all my goals. So I broke the milestone. That's perfect. I hit my goal. I traded Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. I hit Euro, US dollar, and Bitcoin. That's super cool. So now you know exactly what you traded when, and you can look at any single month. So imagine by the time you get to December, instead of you having to scroll back on your calendar every single time to figure out, well, what did I do? When was actually my best month? You can simply look here and say, okay, for the week I hit 40. For this week I hit 55. For next week, whatever, 10 R. Good week, bad weeks. You keep track of what your milestones are, your goals, so you keep pursuing to get better. And you know exactly when you traded. I could look at any week this year, 52 weeks, and I can figure out, oh, I traded more Wednesdays or more Sundays. It looks like Sunday was my best day. I can see overall that for the first quarter of the year, and these are highlighted by quarters if you can't already tell. First quarter of the year, I traded mostly Euro, US dollar. The second quarter of the year, mostly Bitcoin. I averaged 20 R per, let's say, per week. Let's say on the third quarter, I traded mostly Euro, US dollar. The US 30, and I don't know, the dollar index or whatever. And you average how much you traded these days. Very cool. This is a great way for you to keep track of everything you're doing, keep you motivated. And then the last bit and piece to this is, I built this, the whole idea behind this is, well, I make a lot of effort to make the videos that I do for you guys, to show you the cheat sheets that I build, and sometimes you need to get back and see those. And I have the Discord. Let's say you're in my Discord, but it might take you a while to go here, and then you're like, oh, I have to look for my cheat sheets section here, and I have to look to see which one it is. No, it's like we're making it simple. So what I've done is I've added it to here. And so, as a reminder, if you want to join the free Discord, it's there. You want to check out my new YouTube videos, you click on my channel. But let's say you're focusing on market structure. Check this out. Here's the whole cheat sheet for the market structure. That's pretty awesome, right? Let's say, for example, you want a quick review of the entries cheat sheet. You click on that one. Check this out. Fills your whole screen. Types of POIs, what I'm looking for, what needs to happen, the type of candles that I'm trading. I need to remember, like, where do I usually set my entries, my strategy, whatever. It has everything built into this, right? You want to watch the video, click on the YouTube channel here, and you'll be able to click on those videos. You want to, get better at dynamic risk management. Here it is. Dynamic risk management. You can read the whole strategy behind it, the theory behind it, and then you can go ahead and implement it for yourself in the system, right? Set to break even after loss, whatever. You can see all of the cheat sheets on here. So I think this is pretty cool. Hopefully this video wasn't super duper long and boring. The link to this is going to be in the description. This video just goes over how to use it, what I did to modify it. The links is like, I'll show you, I'll put the links in there so that you can change it. All you would want to change would be the Indify if you want to change your own dates. Trading view widgets would be to change these out, right? You change them to anything you want. All of this stuff is already, fine. Feel free to use it. Let me know what your thoughts are. I hope you actually enjoyed this video, and I wish you the best. Have a good trading week and crush it. We'll talk soon for the next video.